Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for a conversation with Laurie Ruettiman, author of Betting on You, and reporter Elaina Athans of ABC 11 Eyewitness News. My name is Talia. I'm the events manager here at Flyleaf. Before we begin, I'd just like to encourage y'all to check out our full events calendar. This season includes a bit of everything, nonfiction about topics ranging from Black history to gardening and food, and fiction ranging from literary to romance and domestic thrillers. So we have a little bit of everything. If any of that sounds interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to subscribe to our Flyleaf Books Crowdcast page, and then you'll get notifications when we add events to that calendar as well. So you can access that at crowdcast.io/flyleafbooks, or you can just click on the Flyleaf Books logo above our faces. If you'd like to support Flyleaf and our guests, you can order Betting on You from the store by clicking on the button just below our faces. We are currently open for browsing from 11 to 5 Monday through Saturday. So if you'd like to stop by in person and buy the book that way, you are welcome to do that as well. And if you've already bought your copy, but you'd like to donate a few dollars to the store to enable us to continue with programming, there is a little donate button at the bottom of your screen, and we really appreciate that. All right. So without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our guest tonight. Laurie Ruettiman is a former human resource leader and writer, entrepreneur, and speaker. CNN recognized her as one of the top 5 career advisors in the United States, and her work has been featured on NPR, The New Yorker, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and Vox. She frequently delivers keynote speeches to business and management events around the world and hosts the popular podcast Punk Rock HR. She lives with her husband and cats in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Elaina Athans joined ABC 11 Eyewitness News in February 2013 as a general assignment reporter. Before coming to ABC 11, Elaina provided extensive coverage of the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre, as well as Hurricanes Sandy and Irene. A graduate of Hofstra University, Elaina is originally from New Jersey, but now resides in Raleigh, and she is currently covering small businesses in the pandemic. All right, y'all. So I will hop out and let you both have a conversation. If anyone has any questions throughout the event, feel free to drop those in the chat or use the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. All right, I'm turning it over to y'all.
Thanks. All right. Hi, everyone. Laurie also. Hello again. You know, going into tonight, I had tried to figure out when I had met you first. And I don't know if you remember, I interviewed you in a Walmart parking lot, probably 2015, I'm guessing, on a story. I can't even remember the story at that time, but I remember walking away from that interview and I just thought, my gosh, this woman she was so gracious, so lovely. I did a quick Google search and I said, wow, she's a motivational speaker. How lucky am I that I got to randomly meet her out on a story. And then now I have your book, Betting on You. So I read this. I thought, I have several thoughts to it, but let me start off by asking you, what brought you to that point to sit down and go through the laborious task of writing a book? Because it's a lot of work.
Well, thank you. And I'm echoing, which is the nightmare of any speaker. So we're going to, do you hear that?
I do.
We're going to fix this. So everybody, this is a nightmare. So just hold on a second. Let's see. Options.
See, we did a check before and it was lovely and then got things started.
Crazy. Maybe Talia can come back on and give us some AV advice. Oh,
yes, sure. Do you have headphones handy?
I thought I did. Let's try.
Let me turn your mic off and back on and see if that makes
sense. No, dang it. What a brand can do.
And what are some of the maybe baby steps people can do to start to build their brand? Because it can be intimidating. Does that mean, joining some organization within your own work structure or outside?
It can absolutely mean that. You know, I think there are some online baby steps that you can take. You know, many of the people out there watching tonight, we're connected through LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a really great and, believe it or not, underutilized place for you to go on and just have an opinion. And again, I'm not asking you to have an opinion about what's happening, you know, with politics in Russia. I'm asking you to have an opinion on what's happening in your community or within your industry. So go like a few articles, post a few, you know, things that you're curious about, ask a question to your community. But beyond that, I do like people who are involved in local clubs, Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, the Optimists. These are really great community ways that you can be of service. You can give back within your local community, but also develop some expertise and develop a relationship and a reputation as someone who's of service. Because Elaina, I don't know about you, but I like to do business with people who are of service and helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of need for support these days, certainly. Not only from an economic standpoint, but just from an emotional well-being. People need that kind of support, especially through these incredibly trying times. You kind of touched upon this a little bit ago, and I want to, at some point, I want to chat with you about how, because like I said, I read the book and I was laughing in the beginning on some of the things that you did. What started your journey, and the trip you took to Mexico, and how that sort of propelled you down this path. So I wanted to see if I could chat with you a little bit about that as we'll obviously go through some of the other stuff. But I just thought that was such a real raw. I was surprised some of the things that you wrote in there.
Well, and so I'm happy to talk about that story because it anchors the book and really lets people know who I am and what I'm about and what I'm not about. So years ago, I had a job at a very small pharmaceutical company called Pfizer, right? They're not in the news for anything these days. Nobody's heard of Pfizer at all. And back then, they had about 110,000 employees. And through acquisition, they needed to let some people go. And for all of you in the chat right now, I wonder, feel free to drop a line and let us know if you've ever been part of a corporate reorg or ever been laid off. And Elaina, I don't know if you've ever been laid off, but
2008 during that fun.
Yes. And I was the pixie of the apocalypse. I was flying around all over the world telling people, I'm sorry, but your job is ending. And I was able to do that because I'm 5 feet tall and blonde and nobody ever got mad at me. It was like I was perfectly designed for this job. And the more I did it, the better I got at it and the more I hated myself. And I choose those words intentionally. It does not feel good to disrupt somebody's life. And on top of that, I was working in an HR department that I felt was a little callous and didn't appreciate what was going on. So the better I got at my job, the more depressed I got. And the more depressed I got, the more I became like every other corporate worker out there, eating corporate food, never moving, complaining all the time. I'm lucky I still have friends from that time in my life because all I did was just bitch and moan. And I'm sure all of you out there can appreciate that. And yet I'm the person who's supposed to be motivating others in the HR department and being there for people. So I was at an airport one night in between flights, eating Starburst and drinking Pepsi,
as you should.
Dinner. And you
should be. Yes.
So I was eating that dinner, waiting for my next flight, flipping through an Us Weekly, because again, why would I learn anything new, right? I'm just going to be envious of other people's lives. And in that moment, I read an article that allegedly said Courtney Love had had weight loss surgery. And Courtney Love, if you don't know who she is like this gritty, grungy, musician. But back then she was mostly known as Kurt Cobain's ex-wife. And she was on an upswing in her career. And the article said she went down to this little clinic in Tijuana and had, weight loss surgery. And I thought, oh my God, celebrities, man, money. And all these people around me, all they did was really invest in themselves. And I was doing the opposite of that. So in that moment, I realized a couple of things. Courtney Love, putting herself first. Pfizer, always having money to do whatever it wanted to do, putting itself first. It was time for me to put myself first. And so that's when I decided I was going to change my life, change my well-being, and go down to Mexico and get a lap band. I know, crazy.
Listen, Good for you. Good for you. You have a lot
Good
of
for me.
chutzpah. You have a lot of chutzpah, as they would say, to do that. The title of chapter 2, Be a Slacker, Work Less, Accomplish More, that idea, that is something that really spoke to me. And I feel like this is something that's a good read for someone who's professional mid-career. The idea of how to balance your life, because if you are in certain professions, you need to give so much of yourself. And that means nights, that means weekends, that means missing the holidays. And the lines are so blurred. You don't really know when it's okay for you to put yourself first. And it's a hard thing to do to get to that point, to even figure out how to get there. I just love the title of that so much, because you don't want to think of yourself as a slacker, but that's not necessarily what you mean when you wrote that. So can you explain that?
Well, I have one fundamental philosophy in this world, and that is your work is not your worth. You have a job that you may love or you may find challenging, and whatever it is, that's fine, but it is not your full identity. And so many of us really believe that the key to a good life is to double down on work, and then the good things in our personal lives will follow. And so the chapter was really written in this framework to understand that you fix work from looking inside. It's an inside out job. And the way it starts is by decoupling your identity from work, by doing this thing I call professional detachment, where you look at your job as if you chose to be there and those people there are your clients. And if that's the case, you want to work efficiently. You want to work like an executive. And so you don't want to work 80 hours a week and then complain about it, because your clients wouldn't put up with that. You want to work a good solid 32 to 40 hours a week, do your best work, and then leave time and space in your life for the good stuff, because it's by doing the good stuff and bringing that back into your job that you actually excel at work. So, Elaina, give me someone who works 30 hours a week and doesn't complain about it and does it right first time, versus someone who's like, oh, I work 60 hours a week, I'm so exhausted. Because chances are you spent a good 10 hours of that time or more thinking about how much you hated work. Just do your job, leave it at work, and then go focus on having a really great life.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there are hard and steady rules with that, or do you have recommendations what someone could do to kind of create separate spaces, which is even more necessary now as folks are working from home?
Absolutely. The chaos begins and ends in the Outlook or Gmail calendar, right? I mean, so many of us are constantly over text with, just work and appointments and meetings, and we're overbooked and we can't say no. And so no one will ever say no for you. So I believe in saying no and practicing boundaries in the small moments to nail it in the big moments. So you're not going to walk into your CEO's office and be like, take this job and shove it, I'm exhausted. But you can practice with a colleague who's taking up too much of your time. You can claim that time back and interrupt them. Say no to meetings, or something that's supposed to be a phone call and becomes a Zoom meeting. Go back to being a phone call. Only you can set those boundaries. And again, it comes from practicing in those small moments so you can nail it in the big ones.
One thing you also, you spoke of this too, is self-care and how that plays into your performance. What do you wish that more people did? And do you think that the overall products would be different for people if they made those investments?
Well, I have to tell you, most people don't even know what self-care is. And I write about this in the book. My husband had no idea. We had to go to marriage therapy and have a therapist explain to him what self-care is. And I'll just let y'all read that story because it's a little spicy. But yeah, most people think self-care is, buying something or having an experience. And I think self-care and well-being is really built on a foundation of physical well-being, emotional well-being, and financial well-being. So you don't buy self-care. You don't buy well-being. You take better care of your body, of your mind, of your spirit. You make better choices. Again, we're talking about boundaries, but boundaries are the foundation of self-care. Saying yes to things you want to say yes to and saying no to things you don't want to do. Boy, those are the lessons we have to learn the hard way in our adult lives, but only you can do that for yourself. And I think if we just started to reclaim time back and focused on eating more nutritious food, moving our bodies. You don't have to join a gym, but you can walk more. You can get up from your computer. These are all things that are free and they're available to people if they only said yes to their own well-being.
Yeah. It's a work in progress for many of us.
Yeah.
And I like what you said in the book. It's not necessarily, purchasing materialistic things or buying this, Kylie's cosmetics or something, crazy like that. It's the fundamental self-care, which is, that could be meditation, something as simple as that.
Absolutely. We have people who are joining us today from Duke Integrative Health, and I think that's one resource here in the Triangle that's really terrific. To go take a class on mindfulness. You can do this online now to really learn how to connect back into your body and to drown out those noises that often force us into a position of having imposter syndrome. Wouldn't it be great if you could fix that? Well, turns out you can fix imposter syndrome, but it takes a little effort, it takes a little action, but that's available to you. And if you can't afford a class, Elaina, we are in the golden age of learning. There is nothing you can't figure out how to do by going to the University of YouTube. Get on the Google and solve your problems. This is available to you. And again, you don't have to spend any money. A lot of this is free.
Yeah. There is a lot on YouTube. You can learn how to put in a light fixture if you wanted, or learn how to meditate.
One of your amazing dishes. Come on now.
I'm going to send you a bowl of my pasta the next time I make it. Although I know you work out a lot, so I don't know where that would play into everything.
I work out and I'm active to live. I think that's one of the lessons I learned at Pfizer. I did go down to Mexico and I did have this lap band surgery, which in the book you can read. I actually had to bribe my way into, which is another tenet of the book, that money moves mountains. Isn't that amazing? So, but I do believe in just living, right? So I've never been an advocate of being thin, but since that time, I'm an advocate of people finding their inner athlete, whatever that looks like. Walking, running, swimming, spending time with your grandchildren. It doesn't have to look like you're, some YouTube influencer doing these crazy endurance sports, but whatever it is that gets your heart rate up a little bit and makes you feel connected to yourself and to the greater world, that's the right thing to do. And for that, eating pasta counts. Yeah.
I'm doing a workout. I'm doing a workout right there, eating the pasta. Oh my gosh, my mom would not be happy when I did that. Okay, so this is something else I had noted, and I was telling my coworkers about it because I just love the idea of a pre-mortem. A pre-mortem that blew my mind. And I came into work one day and I was like, you guys, why aren't we doing this more often? Because we troubleshoot all the time, like we were doing at the top of this virtual meeting. So explain to me pre-mortem and how that's applicable to your life.
Absolutely. So you're right. We did troubleshoot. And sometimes even when you troubleshoot, you miss things, which is why we're having AV difficulties and it's kind of weird. But I will say a lot of us go through an experience and we do a post-mortem, which means we experience this thing that was terrible and then we complain about it and maybe we take some notes and we never remember how terrible it was the next time we do it. In fact, we're all relentless optimists. We want it to go well and everybody's afraid to talk about how it went poorly last time. So I believe in something called the pre-mortem. It's been around forever and adopted by large companies like IBM, Cisco, NASA, many pharmaceutical companies, and the Triangle use it. But it goes like this. Let's say you want to do something important, personally or professionally. Well, maybe it's interviewing for a new job that you really want, or you're about to make a really great new dish that you've never made. I want you to take a minute, set a timer, and in that minute, write down all the ways what you're about to do will fail. Not might fail, not could fail, will fail. And be silly, be irreverent, be goofy. But when the timer goes up after a minute, look at all of those glitches, all those things you've identified that can go wrong, and fix them before you do it. If you do that, research tells us that you've improved your chances of success by over 30%. So imagine, Elaina, if you're about to go on an interview and you know you're a terrible storyteller, you can't make eye contact, you're sweaty, you get nervous.
All of the above times.
Totally.
All of the above.
You can outline all of that and work on it before you do it and have a competitive advantage of over 30%. Why wouldn't you do it?
With what's happening right now with COVID, I know you meet with people and you have clients also. I'm wondering, and curious, what are people coming to you with most right now as they're trying to cope with this, the balance of it all?
Yeah. I work with a lot of leaders who are completely burned out, and they feel that although we're in an age of compassion and empathy, they still have to have this veneer of being a leader. They still have to have answers. And while they might pretend to be a little bit more vulnerable, like, oh, I'm burned out too, they're really just not doing anything to address their own well-being. And so what I talk to leaders about is that you don't fix anything in this world until you fix your own experience at work. You cannot show up for other people unless you show up for yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean in a team meeting talking about all the drama in your home, like you're one of the riffraff, right?
Yeah.
But you can certainly work on being more vulnerable and also fixing the things that are burning you out. There's also another issue, Elaina, of people not taking their PTO. Nobody is taking their PTO right now, especially leaders. They're leaving their compensation on the table. It's like giving money back to a company. So I feel if you've got unused PTO, take it, and don't just take it to like spend time with your family or do something with your kids. Go out, the weather is going to be beautiful here in the Triangle soon. Go for a walk, go volunteer, go do something fun for your spirit and your soul. Between burnout and not taking PTO, we're going to have a frazzled, and we do, but we're going to have an even more frazzled workplace in another 6 months. 2021 is the year we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And, as we're approaching March, and I think it was March 18th, I think that was when North Carolina started shutting down most of businesses and stores. We're approaching that 1 year. And for me, I almost feel like I'm in more of a slump right now than I was all of 2020. I don't know why, because I'm like, it's been a year, nothing's changed, it's the same. I'm learning to cope in this crazy world now.
Well, Elaina, I think you and everybody else has hit a pandemic wall. And it's not only exhausting to work and to do our best work during these crazy conditions, but we're also navigating a terrible political scene that has not quite healed itself yet, along with frayed family relationships or family members we haven't seen in a very long time. I mean, life is coming at us from all different directions, which is why taking time for yourself and recharging is so incredibly important. And the other thing we need to do is not just give lip service to giving grace to people, but actually give it. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh my God, I'm sick of my coworkers and I'm just done with all of this. And I get that feeling, but you know what? Someone is saying that about you. So it's really important to make sure that we're not making a big deal out of things and we're letting a lot of stuff go. And although, again, we pay lip service to it all the time, we really need to stop sweating the small stuff. I often say practice in the small moments to nail it in the big moments. But in those small moments when someone is really bugging you, what you ought to be practicing is just total and complete grace of just saying, you know what? This is not important. This individual in front of me is a human being. If I'm stressed, they're stressed too. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. So that's the kind of conversation I'm having with a lot of clients. But Elaina, we're all there. We're all tired. I just want to go to the Caribbean.
I know. I want to go somewhere. Just it doesn't matter.
I'll go to Chicago to see my family.
I know. So if you're talking, there's a lot in there about self-care, and that is the crux. It sounds, you got to fix yourself before you anticipate or expect anything else to be swinging in your direction.
Well, I certainly believe self-care is in there, but one of the components we haven't talked about is that self-care is really built on a foundation of being curious and learning. So when you're out there trying to figure out what makes me feel better, that's really connected to learning. And so I want to talk a little bit about this tonight because all learning is worthwhile. Like a lot of people think, well, I'm sick of my job and I don't want to learn anything more about work. And good, because that's exhausting. And you're right. The right instinct is to move away from that. But you could learn about, world religions. You could learn whatever's fun. You can learn about cooking. During the pandemic, learned about fostering dogs. I'm a cat person, but we took in a couple of dogs over the pandemic and I watched a lot of dog videos. And actually what I realized is that I was learning about human psychology. Those dog videos were training me, and I'm like, ooh, how could I use this in my business? So all learning is worthwhile. And we know from research at Harvard Business School, at Stanford, at University of Michigan, that the happiest people, the people who are taking care of themselves, they are learning. They are leaning into learning hard. When you're learning, you are on fire. So if you feel exhausted or depleted, you don't have to go watch another motivational TED Talk. But if there's something curious you're curious about in the world, go figure that out. Like, do you know why the sky is blue? Start there. Answer that question. Most of us have forgotten why the sky is blue. Go figure that out. And from there, ask some questions about the moon, stars, the sun. That's a fun way to go.
Yeah. And listen, this doesn't have to cost you money. The Wake County Library System has tons of different branches. I go there and get stacks of books. I'm good for a few months. So this is not something that is a financial investment. You can do it very easily and explore different topics. It's okay to be curious, as you say, because it helps you grow as an individual.
Helps you feel better, and it's the ultimate form of self-care.
Yeah. What do you say to people right now who are just like, listen, man, I hear you, Laurie. I don't care. I don't like where I'm at.
That's totally fine. You don't have to like where you're at, and I don't blame you. Your job sounds terrible, buddy. So I get it. All of us have bad jobs from time to time. What I would say is that people are sheltering in place and looking for that next great thing. They're going to stick it out in their jobs. Then they're going to go to the next job and wonder why that job sucks, by the way. They're going to show up and go, wait, I got a little bit more money and I got a promotion, but how come it doesn't feel good? And that's called the arrival fallacy. Psychologists study this, researchers study this. And it's like you show up and you're like, why aren't things great? Why isn't everything different? And it's like, nothing's different because you're not different, dude. You haven't done a lick of personal development. So I get it that people are stressed, but while you're sheltering in that job, pull back, as Elaina talked about, be a little bit more of a slacker, get your job done, learn a little bit more about what you want to do with the next step in your life, and use the fact that you have a paycheck as part of a privileged position to work on your personal development. So that's the kind of award-winning career coaching that I get. Yeah. So if you're into that more, you'll like betting on you.
Yeah. What do you suggest people do during this lull? Hate this job, can't stand it, so thankful for that paycheck, but also can't wait to leave. What do you suggest people do during that time in terms of development?
Yeah, a lot of people come to me and say that. So whether it's, continuous learning or getting a hobby, these are all things that you can do. But one of the things that I'm really, and you've heard this throughout what I've talked about tonight, I'm really passionate about is volunteering. Because people are more likely to hire individuals with a history of volunteerism on their resume. That's really important. And when you are volunteering, you are de facto growing your network. You never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. And it generally doesn't come from your first degree contacts. It comes from like somebody who knows somebody. And how are you going to get to know somebody in an age of COVID? Well, one of the safest ways to do that is through volunteering. So I beat this drum on every stage around the world. I did it before COVID and I'll do it after COVID. Volunteerism, being of service, is the way not only just to be a good person and live a good life, but the way to grow your career and your brand. And after all, most of us are not born of generational wealth. We don't have silver spoons in our mouths, right? So we have to work, and you might as well do that with integrity. And volunteerism is the way to do that.
I'm actually really surprised by that. I remember getting into college, and that was a big thing you wanted to have on your transcripts as you were applying to schools is volunteerism. But I didn't realize that so much weight is placed into it, into prospective candidates.
Yeah,
later in life.
The differentiation between someone who's qualified and someone who's qualified similarly is often based on these really weird things like, did I like the look of them? Or, did we connect? Do I have a gut feeling? Well, don't give an excuse to have a recruiter or a hiring manager hire someone else. You can show up and differentiate yourself by talking about your volunteerism. And it can be political, it could be social, whatever you feel might be helpful in your industry and developing your brand. But that volunteerism is the thing that can make you memorable. It can help you connect with an interviewer. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've connected with over the years because I have volunteered and I'm a donor over at Safe Haven. Like, I get business as a consultant and as a coach because of the allegiance that I have to this little rescue, right? And Safe Haven is not little at all. They're amazing. But I also do some work at SPCA. And I feel like when I talk about these things, people are like, heck yeah, they can make a connection with me. And I know from being inside in corporate America that volunteerism is absolutely a way that you can make an impact in your interview with hiring managers, with executives, and even with HR ladies like me.
Okay. Well, I will kick up my volunteerism. Not so
It just
good on
makes
that.
you a good person.
I know. I'm not so good. I write the check.
Oh, God.
I'm like, how much do you need for this organization? When you're talking about new jobs and moving on, I love, Laurie, I can't tell you how much I love this quote. I'm not running away, I'm moving on. And that is applicable to so many different areas of life. It could be relationships that aren't working out anymore. It could be your job. How do you decide when it's best to, in fact, do that, to move on?
Well, there are all kinds of pieces of advice out there about when it's time to move on. But if there's no joy in your soul, if you have a hard time waking up in the morning, I mean, a legit hard time waking up in the morning, not just like a normal person, when you feel as if you would rather do anything else in the world but go to your job, and when you're scared, actually, there are a lot of people out there who feel fear for a lot of different reasons about work. It is absolutely time to move on. A lot of people say, I shouldn't have to quit this job. It should get better. Like, HR should swoop in. And that's true. It should get better. But I have studied under a man by the name of Professor Bob Sutton. He's my mentor. And he researches really toxic work environments. And he reminds people that everybody had a first day at work, even that terrible boss. And they weren't terrible on day one. They just slowly got that way over time. They made choices. And it's more likely that you will eventually choose to be like them than you will change the workplace. So if you're hitting your head up against a wall and you're wondering, why don't I fit in? You don't have to quit today. You don't have to quit tomorrow, but you can use the tools in this book to make that decision. But really, if we believe in self-leadership, which I do, and I write about in this book consistently, we are individually accountable for our decisions. So only you know when the time is right to leave. But once you know it, you can't unlearn it. You can't unknow it. You've got to make a plan to get out.
Talk about, and then continuing to talk about the disintegration, the Sunday scaries is a thing people really do experience, and probably potentially even more so during COVID. I mean, how does one cope with Sunday scaries, technically already at their job, which is their home?
Boy, those Sunday scaries are real. Sometimes they're even real for me, and I'm self-employed. It's like, what am I doing? Yeah, I know. It happens, and that's part of the human condition, right? We all have these moments where we're like, oh my gosh, yet another week. I think there's something to be said that if you're really investing in your underdeveloped personal life, work isn't that important. Like, it doesn't take that primary position in our mind. We're not constantly obsessed over it. So that's why when someone comes to me and they are completely overwhelmed and depressed and anxious, we focus on developing that underdeveloped personal life because we know they can't quit today. They can't quit tomorrow. So let's bring some joy into the other areas of their lives. And that way on Sunday, you're busy having a great family dinner. You're prepping for the cool things you're going to do this week. You're reading, you're watching something fun with your family. You've got other things going on, and work is just that thing you do to make your personal life great. So nobody deserves to have Sunday scaries. And, as adults, we're going to have them from time to time, but you can do a lot to really shift your focus, to professionally detach, and to be a little bit of a slacker and have great things in the rest of your life so that work, it doesn't torment you.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of great advice and also guidance in this book. Is there anything else I've missed and just you think should be highlighted as folks are finding their way and navigating their own?
Well, I'm really appreciative of anybody who read the book, who bought the book, or who will buy the book through Flyleaf. Really important to support Flyleaf tonight. And yes,
shop local.
Yes. And I really feel strongly that if you're in a position in your life where work is broken, you need to decompress, move back away from work, and really focus on developing your personal life. So you fix work by fixing yourself first. It's an inside out job. And if you need any advice or guidance, I'm probably your neighbor. I'm in your community. Connect with me on LinkedIn and I'm happy to help. And if I'm not the woman to do it, I will find the person for you. So I would love to take some questions, Elaina. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do. I've been seeing some come through. Let me scroll right back up.
And Talia's here to help.
Yeah, I was just getting in some wall sits while you were talking because I figure, working those little moments of exercise, right?
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. I don't see questions yet, but feel free to use the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of your screen if you have anything to ask Laurie or Elaina. I'm sure they would both be happy to talk about work, life, anything you all are curious about.
I'm feeling Jen with her comment. It's called pandemic fatigue, and I think that's definitely what it is. And I will say for myself, I do not waste any of my PTO, any of it. I literally went like this on the calendar, and I was like, okay, I'll take that day off. I'll take that day off. I have nothing planned. I'm just gonna hang, but I need to break from it all.
Yeah, reset.
Yeah.
Super healthy. One of the questions that I get consistently when I do these author talks is that how do I turn off, right? How do I turn off my phone? How do I turn off my computer? How do I truly decompress? Because even when I'm not working, I'm still on social media. And boy, if I had an answer to that, I would be a multi-bajillionaire. But there are great tools that I use. And one of the tools that I like is something called Freedom, which I have installed on both my phone and my desktop here. And it absolutely cuts off access to the internet. And you can schedule that. You can download that app. I think it's like a super cheap app and a desktop app as well. And it's been a game changer for me. So again, we're all adults here. We all have to make decisions about our time. But if you feel like you need a little extra help like I do, I mean, I'm human. The Freedom app is really an essential tool.
So it'll shut down email as well, or just social media?
Oh, it shuts down, depending on how you configure it, it'll shut down access to your social media sites, or it'll shut down access to your Wi-Fi or to your Ethernet. So yeah, it's awesome. It's really great.
So I'm thinking there are some phones I need to steal and download this on and work all that out.
The Freedom app is terrific.
That's going to force you to sit home and read or do something else or sleep.
Yes.
Sleep on time.
And one of the practices that I absolutely love, and a lot of people are doing this right now, and I see it all the time. I'm connected to a wonderful woman by the name of Greta Nance, and she does this as well. Greta reads 10 pages a day. And I think that's a really good, and so many people do this. They read 10 pages a day. It's not like you have to grab the whole entire book, but as part of their nightly routine, their nightly ritual, the way they shut down their brain is they go to Flyleaf, they get a book that they've been curious about, or they ask Talia for a recommendation, and they only try to tackle 10 pages. They're not trying to finish the whole thing because that can be scary and daunting, but it's these small wins that really set them up for success. And science says that when you're reading, you're really retraining your brain to learn. So 10 pages a night. Shut down the internet with Freedom and then read your 10 pages.
Woo! Well, that might lead us to our next question. What are some of the immediate takeaways we can bring to our jobs or homes tomorrow? That's what Janine is asking. So how can we change tomorrow? Make it a better day.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, one of the first things you can do is hit that Outlook or Google Calendar the night before. So do it tonight and figure out what meetings you can cancel for the week. This is really important. This is something I teach in my practice. There are a lot of meetings that we have that are out there that are just like standing meetings or, things that suck the time away from the day. What can you convert into a phone call? What can you just outright cancel? Every night before I go to bed, I absolutely do that. And what do I do with that time? Well, I've actually started reconfiguring my calendar, and I teach this constantly in my practice. My personal life goes on my calendar first. So even you can do this when you are fully employed, right? You could figure out, when do I need to eat? When do I need to sleep? When do I need slack in my day so I can actually leave my home office and go to the bathroom. There's so many corporate executives out there who tell me, I've worked 6 hours today and I haven't had any time to pee. I'm like, your bathroom is 10 feet away from you now. There's no excuse, right? So if you put some of these personal milestones on your professional calendar, you're actually embodying all the lessons in my book around individual accountability, well-being, learning, because you're learning how to work a different way, and taking risks. I mean, no one's going to fire you for setting boundaries. That's the other thing I want to make clear tonight. I worked in corporate human resources for well over a decade. We didn't fire people who were lighting the world on fire and took PTO or went to the bathroom. We fired people who really had it coming. So I know this is going to be a controversial thing to say, but it's real hard to fire people. So if you need a break, start scheduling personal things like lunch on your professional calendar.
I don't think I've had a lunch in like 3 years. I don't think I had a lunch in 3 years. I'm eating, usually balancing it on my lap as I'm typing and emailing or calling or something like that. But you go in, the very first thing you said you do is schedule personal time.
I do. My week is broken out into a couple different buckets. I schedule my workouts on my calendar. I schedule my lunch. I have a morning routine and an evening routine. And those are for me, because I'm self-employed, they're, we don't touch them. They're sacrosanct. But also I coach corporate employees and they can have a lunch. Like they can absolutely do that. They can say every day from 4 to 4:45, they're going to do Tai Chi or whatever it is they're interested in doing. You can absolutely work your calendar this way. And then in a very generous way, invite people to fill that time that remains with the things they need to fill it with. But I'm here to tell you that I'm not like scheduling 4 hours a day for my personal life, right? How long does it take to eat lunch? 16 minutes. Like me, So Elaina, you can eat lunch with integrity and then take the rest of that half an hour and do emails with integrity, right? It's all about making sure you're doing the thing you're doing and not scattershot, continuing to work like the way we worked in 2019. I tell people, I'm not surviving a pandemic to live like it's 2018. I am doing the hard work now so that I can live an even better life in 2021 and 2022. And it requires setting boundaries and, eating lunch. So that's one thing you can do tomorrow.
But people feel so guilty to do that. They feel like this is what the job requires them. They have to work during this time period.
Isn't that the dumb story we tell ourselves? Does our boss say we have to eat lunch while multitasking? Does our boss say you can't get up during the day and take a stretch break? No. These are the stories we tell ourselves. We attend a meeting because we think we have to be there versus really being brave and learning how to take a risk, which is something you can learn with the pre-mortem, right? You can decline a meeting, but before you do that, ask, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I decline this meeting? And if you're not going to get fired for declining the meeting, try saying no. Adults take risks.
There's actually a question here that I think relates really well. So you can cancel work meetings, but what someone asked, Leslie asked, how do you say no to a Zoom call with family? How do you break personal from? How do you separate the wants and the needs in your personal life, especially with family?
Oh man, how do you say no to your family? That's just an existential question. You say no gently. You say no in the small ways first before you turn down, that crazy Thanksgiving dinner where they want you to come in November and they say, oh, we've all been vaccinated, or some of us have been vaccinated and you're not comfortable. You can say no to that, but first practice in those smaller moments. And again, it's practice. You may get it wrong, but if you make that list of all the ways it could go wrong before you do it, and try to fix that stuff before you actually take the action of saying no, you're grounded in reality and you've done the legwork of de-risking that activity. So there's no easy answer to saying no to your family, especially when you've trained them that you say yes all the time. That's how it is in my family. For years, they just thought automatically, I'm going to show up to every event. I'm going to throw every party. I'm going to be available for late night calls, right? And it wasn't until I set boundaries and had difficult conversations that kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Stop? I don't know.
Well, in seeing that, I don't know, Leslie. I don't think I can say no to my mom. I just can't foresee that going very well at all. But I have said no to friends. I have said no to friends. I said no to dinners recently, very recently actually, because I just was not into it. I just wanted to stay home. Like,
Yeah.
I want to stay home. I'm looking forward to staying home. This is all I want to do. I don't want to dress up. I don't want to go out to eat. I don't want to be around a bunch of people. It's too much work for me. I want to detox. This is how I want to spend my Friday night.
Elaina, are you still friends with them?
Some. Some. And that's okay. COVID really has changed me. And I don't know if this is something that I was a very, very social, busy person prior to this. And I'm a mega extrovert. So this required me to become an introvert. And now some of it is catching and I'm appreciating it. And I don't necessarily feel the need to be out all the time as I once did.
Yeah. Do you think that had it not been for COVID, you would have not learned that about yourself?
Probably not. Just because, I think also a lot of it has to do with my job. It's a very fast-paced job. So I'm used to balancing a lot and go, 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 go. And you can keep up the energy, you know how to do it and push through. You know how to push through. So you would go straight from work and I would drive out here and go to this event and come home. And it was exhausting, but I was able to maintain it and do it. And I probably could have continued doing it, but there's something about this slowdown I really, really appreciate because I wasn't doing it. I can't, before the pandemic, I wasn't reading books as much as I am now again. I just never spent the time at home that I am now. So it's been good for me in that sense where I was forced to slow down and forced to do things that I put all of that on the back burner because life was in front of me.
I love that. And, I think so many of us have had those moments during COVID where we've discovered something new about ourselves, something we were doing that we want more of or we want to do less of. And I mean, it's hard to say there's a silver lining to a pandemic, but personal growth is really important. And if you can come out of this experience changed in some positive way, well, that's the best thing you can do when it comes to a pandemic. So I really encourage people, whether it's my book or other books or, videos or learning, to go out there and try to do one thing to change their lives, to improve it in 1 degree. It doesn't have to be you change your life 180 degrees, but just do something to move the needle forward slowly. And then I think we've endured this for a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom asks, what will work look like a year from now? How will it differ from a year ago? And that actually relates a lot to what you were saying about the growth and the change, Elaina, that you've had in your life. How do you think COVID will impact how you work going forward, or will it?
Elaina, I wonder how small businesses are changing too.
Oh my gosh. It depends on the small business. It really depends on the small business. I know of a florist who closed down really early. She closed down her shop in April and moved everything out of the space. And she's actually doing better financially, bringing in more money working out of her home garage than she was having a storefront. And that's because she's not dealing with the overhead. So for her, she's making more in pocket. But, there are others like restaurants. The capacity right now is 50%, but on most nights, many of these restaurant owners and restaurateurs will tell you they don't even hit that number. They could be around 20, they could be around 30. They don't hit the 50%. Maybe they will on a big holiday, such as Valentine's Day, which was just behind us. So I think it depends on the restaurant. Bars they've been handed such a different hand because for so many months, they were not allowed to open. And when they were, it was only for outdoor spaces. So maybe some, spots that didn't have outdoor spaces, what are you going to do? You have nowhere to serve. And we were talking about this on the call before the meeting got underway. I know of places that have not once opened their doors since March of last year. I mean, that's 12 months of either mortgage or rent that has been paid, or they are going to be required to pay a landlord at some point. So I don't know what is going to happen to the small business sector. It's in Raleigh, the employer in downtown Raleigh is the small business sector. So, I think it's business to business if how they're going to make it through. I've already been saddened to see many close. And if anyone on this has been through downtown Raleigh and drove through now, it's a real sight, because some of your favorite spots have closed or have not even reopened. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm still kind of amazed what has happened in just a year. And I've been through the housing crisis in 2006. I was laid off during that. So, I remember that was another turbulent financial time also. I'm curious, Laurie, since you have such a heavy background in corporate America, I mean, not now, I know, but for quite a while, where do you expect that to go? Do you think this is the new normal and this is how they're going to outsource and maybe not see the need to bring people back to physical buildings?
Well, Elaina, your point around small businesses being the primary employer here in North Carolina, it's true all over the United States. Small business is the engine of our economy. And so when I talk about corporate America, and there are large corporations here in the Triangle, I almost feel like I'm not really talking to real Americans because it's such a small percentage of our population. But I think this is what I'm optimistic about. Number one, new business applications are up. So when people are losing their jobs, they are betting on themselves. And I love that. I think that's amazing. I bet on myself in the last recession. I've been around now for 2 recessions. I'm still going strong. This is the time, if you're going to start a business, this will test everything you've ever believed in. It'll test your finances. But if you can do it, boy, you will get an MBA from real life experience. So I'm encouraged by that. And I think corporations, what I'm excited about and encouraged about is their philanthropy. I mean, they have really, for a lot of years, lied about how generous they are and have not donated to social causes. And now they're doing more than just writing a check. I mean, they're really reconfiguring the way they interact with minority communities, people of color, women especially. And so I'm encouraged about the future of work in that way, because I think there's a real push for diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging in a way that I've never seen in my career. So in that way, if you've got a corporate job and you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, stick with it and see if you can be part of the changing atmosphere at work. And if you can drive change, do it. Now's the time to do it.
I'm surprised, not surprised, but applications are up for folks making that investment in themselves.
Yeah, I think because they've got a little bit of money, left over from either severance, or they've got some unemployment money coming in, and they think, all right, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to bet on myself. So, the applications are a lot of services applications, consulting, advising, that kind of stuff, but it really runs the gamut. And I'm encouraged by the Small Business Administration really focusing on small businesses, businesses under 20 people, and really starting to reprioritize true small businesses in America. I think it's kind of cool, and I'm excited about the future.
What I've loved seeing during this, and I cover small businesses every single day mostly, is how many different grants have popped up. And it's kind of hard to balance, or not balance, but you don't even know of all of them. The Downtown Raleigh Alliance might have 1 or 2, and then, the city of Raleigh has another. So there is some opportunity there for a little bit of cash to get the engine going, which is great.
I love that.
Especially when you need that kind of help on the jump.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm so pleased to have been with you. I know we're hitting the top of the hour, and I just wanted to personally stop and thank Flyleaf Books and Elaina Athans. You're just such great partners, and I'm supportive of your work and so appreciative for the opportunity to talk about the ideas in the book.
Thank you. So great to see you again, Laurie. Just this way, though.
I know. We'll see one another soon in real life again.
I know.
Thank you so much, both of you, for coming out and joining us. It's been such an interesting conversation, and the first business event that we've had in a long time. So I really appreciate y'all coming, bringing this to me and letting me share it with the community. I think it's been really valuable for a lot of people. Just a few quick reminders before we wrap up for anyone watching. We have copies of Betting on You. Feel free to buy it from Flyleaf. We really appreciate that business. Below us is a link to our store website where you can buy a copy of that book or anything else you're interested in reading or learning about. And I also encourage you to check out our Crowdcast profile to see our full events schedule because we have a lot of other really interesting topics coming up to talk about and share with you. And I love seeing all of you, at least seeing your names at these events. So please come join us for more. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Elaina. Thank you to everyone watching. If you'd like to share this with anyone else, it'll be saved as a video, so you can just come back to the link and send it to anyone who you think might be interested. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.